Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking the complex legal jargon surrounding the European Union's NIS2 Directive and translating it into clear, actionable business intelligence. Because if you're an executive, understanding this sweeping new cybersecurity law isn't just an IT issue anymore. It's absolutely critical for your day-to-day operations. Let's jump right in.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover what NIS2 actually is, who needs to comply, the key requirements, how to turn all of this into a competitive advantage, and finally, a practical roadmap to start preparing right now.
All right, Section 1. What is NIS2? The new standard for EU cyber resilience. We've spoken to law firms, and honestly, even they are sometimes scratching their heads over this directive. So let's establish the foundational facts first.
So here's a question I hear all the time. Does the NIS2 directive only apply to giant utility companies located within the EU? It's honestly the biggest misconception out there. When a lot of executives hear critical infrastructure, they immediately picture massive power grids or state-owned telecom companies. But the reality? It is so much broader than that.
Basically, the NIS2 directive is a mandatory, legally binding update to the EU's 2016 cybersecurity rules, and its goal is to improve operational resilience across the entire supply chain. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that this isn't some voluntary, nice-to-have framework. It is a mandatory upgrade. National regulators are going to enforce this with real audits and real inspections. It's a sweeping mandate designed to protect the broader economy. Which brings us to Section 2. Who needs to comply? The essential, the important, and the ripple effect. Let's see how this directive casts a much wider net than you might initially expect.
The directive actually breaks its targets down into two main categories: essential entities and important entities. Now, essential covers the obvious ones, right? Energy, healthcare, transport. Because obviously, disrupting power grids or hospitals is an adversary's absolute dream. But take a close look at the important category. This pulls in digital infrastructure like cloud providers, the financial sector, and even public administration. The list of affected industries has literally exploded.
And here's a genuinely surprising detail. Did you know that individual fuel station networks are now considered critical infrastructure under NIS2? Yeah, even businesses you'd never typically label as digital giants are legally bound by this. I mean, just imagine the supply chain chaos if a major fueling network just went dark for a few days. The point is, you really don't have to be a tech company to fall under NIS2's radar.
Now, if you only take one single thing away from this explainer today, please let it be this question. Are your third-party vendors and suppliers compliant? This question right here reveals the true plot twist of NIS2. Because you might be sitting there thinking you're completely safe since you don't run a hospital or a power plant. But let me tell you, that is a very dangerous assumption.
And here's exactly why. It's the supply chain twist. Smaller companies entirely outside of those critical sectors absolutely must comply if they supply large, affected enterprises. So even if you're a smaller company, or maybe you're based totally outside the EU, if you provide key services to an essential or important entity, guess what? Their compliance burden just became your compliance burden. Larger enterprises are facing massive regulatory heat right now, and they are definitely going to push that heat right down the supply chain to their vendors.
Okay, moving on to Section 3, key requirements and the high stakes of non-compliance. Now that we know exactly who is in the crosshairs, let's explore what the law actually expects you to do.
There's this incredibly practical piece of advice from Atlant Security that acts as a huge wake-up call. They essentially say, please do not buy policy packs. If you do, your policies will be toothless and an auditor might fail you for not using them in practice. Look, we all know the old corporate habit of buying a giant binder of security policies, shoving it in a desk drawer, and checking the compliance box. Under NIS2, an auditor will absolutely fail you for that. They don't want paperwork. They want documented incident procedures that your staff actively practices in the real world.
Because when a crisis actually hits, the clock starts ticking insanely fast. 24. That's the magic number. You have exactly 24 hours from the moment you detect a significant cybersecurity incident to report it to your national response team. Just imagine a breach happening at, say, 10 p.m. on a Friday night. You cannot wait until Monday morning to raise the flag. Your internal reporting channels literally need to be perfected right now just to hit that tight window.
And guys, it doesn't stop there. Following that initial 24-hour early warning, you then have just 72 hours to submit a highly detailed follow-up report.
In that report, you have to outline the full extent of the breach and the exact remediation steps you're taking. So you're essentially trying to manage a live crisis while simultaneously compiling a massive regulatory report.
But it's not just about reporting. You have to actively prove your operational resilience. This means maintaining your business continuity plans, implementing regular system backups, and constantly testing your disaster recovery procedures. Oh, and you have to rapidly patch hardware and software vulnerabilities while securely monitoring all your IT and OT endpoints. Faking this simply isn't an option anymore. Failing to adhere to these operational requirements can result in completely crippling financial penalties.
All right, let's shift our perspective a bit. Section 4. The competitive advantage, reframing compliance as a growth driver. Let's move away from the doom and gloom of fines and look at why getting ahead of NIS2 is actually a huge strategic win.
Complying with NIS2 has the power to transform your cybersecurity from a pure cost center into a massive trust-building advantage. Think about it. It builds long-term trust with customers, improves overall operational and cyber resilience, and suddenly you become incredibly attractive in enterprise tenders. Large clients are absolutely terrified of supply chain vulnerabilities right now. If you can walk in and prove you're NIS2 compliant, you instantly leap to the top of their vendor list. It serves as a sharp competitive edge for entering the EU market, all while massively reducing your own financial risks from cyber disruptions.
So how do we get there? Section 5. How to prepare today. A practical roadmap for executives. Let's wrap things up with exactly what your leadership team needs to be doing right now.
Here is a rock-solid, defensible action plan. Step 1. Assess your relevance. Are you an essential entity, an important entity, or a critical supplier to one? Figure that out first. Step 2. Establish a comprehensive information security program. Step 3. Improve your incident reporting channels by focusing on becoming secure first, because you need the tools to actually detect things within that 24-hour window. Step 4. Scrutinize your third-party vendors for supply chain compliance. Remember, if your IT provider gets hacked, you get breached. And finally, Step 5. Conduct ongoing security audits and vulnerability monitoring.
So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought, something you should absolutely bring up at your next board meeting. Is your supply chain currently a strategic security asset, or is it a hidden NIS2 compliance liability just waiting to strike? Thanks so much for joining this explainer today. Stay vigilant and stay resilient out there.